So I'm going to start by saying a good morning and welcome to this 2022 International Women's Day event for people involved in the emergency services and management sector. I'm Susan Mackenzie, CEO at the Emergency Services Foundation. I can see so many familiar faces here today, which is amazing, and many new faces, and really welcome you all. And Tony just said to me, what a buzz there is in the room. Wait till the end of the day. Just saying, Faye, don't give any secrets away, please. It's just amazing to see you all here in person. You know what it's like as an event organiser. You have these minor panic attacks that things are going to change at the last minute, as they did so much last year, but we had faith this would happen, and here we are, and it's just amazing. So to start with, just the housekeeping bathroom in the foyer. Emergency exits, all of these doors around here are emergency exits out onto the balcony, and there's stairs down, and the meeting point is in the courtyard. The program is on the table for you. And the other thing I will say is if you parked in the Arts Centre car park, you can get a validated ticket to reduce the cost of that parking. As you came up the stairs, you saw a big ESF media wall. On the table next to that are some cards with slogans about break the bias. Please go mad on social media. Do lots of posting. So, as we begin today, I want to start by acknowledging the hardship and grief that so many people across our land and beyond are suffering today. People who wanted to be here aren't because of COVID and their response roles. And obviously we also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, the Wurundjeri people. And I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and anyone who may be in the room today with an Aboriginal heritage. I would also like to acknowledge the really important role that Indigenous women leaders play in their urban, regional and rural communities. They're so critical in driving the change that we need to see. I'd also like to welcome Tony Pearce, Chair of the Emergency Services Foundation. Tony always wants to fully understand and immerse himself in what we do so that he can be fully informed when he advocates for what we do. So I really appreciate you being here, Tony. Thank you very much. There's a number of other senior leaders here today from the sector. You know who you are. I'm not going to go through a list of names, but thank you very much for joining us today. I warned Tony that he'd be the only bloke in the room. That's not quite true, there's one other. But it made me think about my first day at CFA, and some of you might have heard this before, but my first day at CFA 20 odd years ago, I walked into a room and there was 260 men and me, and I thought, oh my God, you know, and so that's what it feels like, Tony. Seriously, we're all here because tomorrow is International Women's Day. It's a day dedicated to celebrating the achievements of women, raising awareness about women's equality, and this year the theme is Break the Bias. Imagine a gender-equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes and discrimination. A world that's diverse, equitable, inclusive. A world where difference is valued and celebrated. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions, but together we can help break the bias. 3 years ago, ESF initiated this International Women's Day event because, alarmingly, and it speaks volumes, no one else in the sector was doing it. And as a woman leader, I thought, well, you know, do it. So here we are, and this is the third event that we've done that brings the sector together. And given ESF's focus is on mental health and prevention and early intervention, you might say, well, what's that got to do with ESF? And for me, that's easy. because anyone who is discriminated against will undoubtedly be feeling pretty rotten. And sadly, that happens to way too many people in our sector. My phone's ringing. It has certainly happened to me. And I remember many years ago when I was the most senior woman in the CFA, all the blokes got sent overseas to a very prestigious leadership school. I got sent locally. And what made it worse was that when I got there, I was told that I wasn't dressed appropriately. And I was the only woman in the course. And then I was told, because I had my sort of 3/4 length pants and a nice shirt, that I wasn't dressed appropriately. So in front of this room of men, at the start of a 3-week course, I was put in my place in the opening, and that was by a facilitator. So there was one brave man in that room who called out the bias, and I will never forget him. He was from Queensland Police. And, you know, it made me think very much about today and about bias and how that makes you feel. We've built today's program based on 2 things. 1, feedback from last year. We listened to what you had to say and what you said in your registration surveys. You told us you wanted time to network, to meet others, to discuss, to learn, to be inspired. And last year, many of you said, "Where are the blokes?" Well, they're coming this afternoon. And we've had a fabulous response. And you also said it was so great to be sitting with people from different agencies. So that's what's happening today. That's why we've mixed you up. So we've got all that with a great sense of fun and a jam-packed program. So I sincerely hope you have a brilliant day and that you go away smiling. We're going to begin now with Dr. Sam Mccurdy. And Sam is Victoria Police's first ever Gender Equality Advisor. She joined a little over 12 months ago to provide subject matter expertise in relation to gender equality, inclusion and belonging. Needless to say, she's very well qualified, and I'm not big on introductions. So, because I know if you're interested, you'll go to LinkedIn. And so you can read all about Sam there. I've asked Sam to get us open this event to get us all on the one page. Sam, please. Please welcome Sam.
Okay. Am I okay? I've got sort of 2 mics. We'll see how we go. One is just not enough. Thank you so much, Susan. That's a very kind introduction. And yes, feel free to Google me, but maybe wait till I've said something first. Let's go to, let's see if this, am I clicking here and pointing at you? Fantastic. There we go. Where shall we begin? Firstly, saying good morning, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I think a really good place to start today is at confessions. So I'm going to give you 2 quick ones just to, connect with you and share a little bit of insight into my life. The first confession is, of course, I'm not a real doctor. One of those fake academic ones, which is generally sort of not something that I would announce, and particularly not in a room like this. But when I go out, particularly to conferences and particularly to get on planes, where they say, "Welcome, Dr. Mccurdy," I'm always petrified that I'm going to be called on for a medical emergency. So there's plenty of people in the room that you can call on in a medical emergency today. Don't look at me, but please come and get me off the stage, okay? So that's the first thing. And I will say that I do have a background in psychology and also social work. And when I did go to my very first conference after getting my doctorate, the lady 3 rows behind me actually did start to go into labour. And of course, I sat there thinking to myself, please don't ask me, what do I have to offer this woman? And I thought, my background's in social work and psychology. I'm certainly not going to lean over and go, so how are you feeling about that last contraction, Julie? You okay with that? So needless to say, I got through that flight without any problems. So that's my first confession. My second confession is that I wasn't the first choice to make these opening remarks. The absolutely incomparable Tanya Kovac was asked to do these opening remarks. For those of you who don't know Tanya, she is the CEO of GenVic and an absolute force of nature. So I know that she would love to have been here today, and I just wanted to give her a little shout out to say we're thinking of you, and I will try and do as good a job as you did. So, welcome to everybody also from Tanya, who I'm sure is thinking about us today. Are you feeling enthusiastic so far? Yes, I've confessed that basically I'm a fraud. Secondly, I'm not good in emergency situations. And of course, the one thing that's not fraudulent about me is the fact that my care and concern for women and gender equality is absolutely real. And it is my absolute delight to be here, and I do want to get us all on the same page. I have been at 22 International Women's Day and spoken at every single one of those. And the last 12, I've worn the same purple shoes. There's no other day in the calendar where you can wear purple shoes. So I'm always grateful to have International Women's Day. But I do a lot of speaking at schools and work with youth often. And one of the things that they ask me is, do we really need International Women's Day? Don't we have gender equality already? Now, I'm not going to start with a whole heap of stats. The wonderful Nikki Vincent's going to come on this afternoon and tell you about our audit data, and I'm sure that she will give you both some very non-surprising and perhaps some surprising statistics about the state of gender equality. I am an academic and I am a senior lecturer at Monash University, so I want to share with you a quick trick that I show all my research students to get them on the same page about their research topics. One of the things that I recommend they do is to use Google. Now, you would think that I might be recommending to use Google Scholar, but I'm not. I'm actually recommending that we use Google Images. Now, does anyone know how Google Images, how the order of those images come up at all when you go in and have a look? No? This stuff fascinates me. Clearly, I need to get out more, but I'll share with you. It's based the same way on algorithms, so your Facebook and that kind of thing. And what it is when you pair content, so particular words and phrases, with an image. So when it goes out into the World Wide Web, it has a look at what are the words that people are using in their content, what pictures are they using with that content. And what it does is it gives us a very good idea of how the world is thinking. What are the pictures that come to mind when they're thinking about particular social phenomena? So we're going to try a little experiment. I'm looking at the boys up the back because they're going to take us through. We're going to have a look at a few words. And one of the things that I start with is leadership. Let's have a look through leadership. If we can just scroll through, have a look at these images, look at them and tell me what it is that you see. We can keep going. Yep. Thank you. Don't know about you, there's lots of pointing. Lots of pointing, isn't there? Lots of sort of standing like this. Yes. Lots of men, and importantly, men up front with followers. And if we have a look and really unpack some of these images, you'll also see that a lot of them are about being bigger and leading people that are smaller. Now, I don't know about you, But to me, and I'm sure to the women in the room today, that isn't necessarily what we consider to be leadership, right? Yet, this World Wide Web tells us that people are pairing these kinds of words with these kinds of images. This is the thought that comes to mind when they're thinking about leadership. Let's hazard a guess and go to caring or caregiving. Oh, we're in a very different space now. What do we see? Oh, here we go, caregiving. There's a lovely girlfriend caring for her boyfriend, probably asking what he would like for dinner maybe. We've got lots of hands being held. We've got open hearts. And again, when we think and we go through and scroll through, we see lots of images of women. Again, what this does is bring to mind the fact that out there in the world, when people are talking about caring, they're actually talking about women. When they're talking about leadership, they're thinking about men. Let's go to something even more distressing, hard work. Let's scroll through and have a look at hard work. Again, we see images that are very masculine. Now, I don't know about you, but I work damn hard. And I know that out there on the front line, that our women work hard every single day. They go home and then do another shift. And they continue to work hard. This whole sector is absolutely built on hard work. But it is not necessarily the hard work of men. Thank you. That's just a little touch of how I'd like us to start to think about some of the themes that you'll see today. Thinking back to how Google Images is created and thinking about some of the key things that define us in terms of equality. Equal pay for equal work. What does it mean to be a working parent? What does it mean to be a woman in a male-dominated area? Think about Kate Jenkins' most recent report. And what does it mean to live in poverty? I mean, women today are absolutely the biggest growing group in terms of homelessness and poverty. So I say to these young women who ask me, do we need International Women's Day? Hell yes, we do. Breaking the bias. One of the things that I've been asked to talk about is what exactly is bias. So I want to just take a step back to those Google images. Somewhere across the world, millions and millions of people paired some words and content with an image. They made a decision and they didn't think it through, because that is not the world that we live in. And when we make decisions and we take actions without thinking them through, that's bias. It's an economic way of thinking, it's convenient, and it's something that's very, very hard to break because it becomes a habit. But this year, International Women's Day, is all about us taking pause and challenging one another to actually think before we take an action, to think before we make a decision. And that is what breaking the bias is all about. I've decided that this year I'm going to break my bias, and my bias is actually for evidence. As a researcher, I'm constantly looking for evidence. I'm constantly searching for the truth. And over a career of 22 years, I have to say that evidence has been my friend. It's been the thing that I've pulled out to try and convince organisations, corporates, not-for-profits, local governments, ministers that actually we don't live in an equal world, and it's the men in power that really need to step up and do something about it. As we know, knowing better doesn't always mean doing better. It's actually very hard to make those changes. I myself am going to stop having a bias for evidence and start a bias for collaboration, and actually stop going to our men in power and telling them what the latest research says. I'm actually going to start telling them about what my observations are of emergency services, which are the most courageous and wonderful people that I've met in my career, and I'm absolutely honoured to be working at VicPol. Who'd have thought a gender equality advisor at VicPol? It is very tough, but it's not as tough as actually being out there on the front line every day. So my job is really to try and help and speak truth to power, to try and help the organisation understand what it needs to do. But that is a job that you also need to take up. So whilst I'm dropping my bias for evidence and I'm going to start my bias towards collaboration, I'm going to make sure that we all get a seat at the table and that we use our personal experiences and our insights to draw to the attention of those leaders the general direction that we need to go. The fact is, as the gender equality advisor, I don't have the answers. That's another confession. It'll be the last one for the day. But neither do the leaders that are in charge of our organisations. So my challenge to mostly men who are in positions of power across the board in emergency services is this. Invite the women in this room to your table. Sit down, let them sit beside you. Let's try power with and not power over. This is not a problem that we can solve alone. Women don't have the answers, academics don't have the answers, and the leaders in power, I think, do understand that they better come up with some, but I don't necessarily know that or think that they know where to go next. I was just looking at this image and I thought it doesn't look anything like me. I did think it looked a little bit like Shane Patton though. I imagine us there with a map saying, I don't know where to go, but you know what? We're going to work it out together. Bring your experience to the table, bring women's experience to the table, throw out your old maps, throw out your old way of thinking, and let's craft a new map to get to gender equality. And along the way, I want everyone to stop while we're creating that new map and break down and bury and smash every single bias that we find along the way. And if we can do that together, I am absolutely certain that we can create a sector that will allow our emergency services workers to get on with the important job that they do, not have to worry about this kind of equality stuff anymore, where they can lead, because that's what you do, lead people out of trouble, where they can care, because that is what you do, caring and being human and connecting with somebody else. And boy, do you do hard work. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm very, very happy to bring International Women's Day in the Emergency Services open. Thank you.